this. I'm very much aware we're overdue, but unfortunately, both our schedules never line up. So we're a little delayed, but here we are.
Yes, I would have been great to do it before, but things happen. So
Exactly. Things happen. So I guess your take on the Super Bowl.
I think it went. Give me a second. Turn my TV off. Um, it went how I expected it to. I
Yeah.
mean, Niners got out to that lead, and when you're just watching a game and you're like, yeah, here it goes. Once it hit
Yeah.
halftime, I was like, oh god, here he comes. And when Kelsey went to the half with what 1 yard,
Yeah.
I was like, uh oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
And then the rest is history, as they say.
It was a wild game, and I feel for Shanahan because that's like the second time he's been to the Super Bowl. He's now been part of two overtime Super Bowls and was the loser on both of those occasions. Obviously, with the Falcons back in 2017, and now with the 49ers. He seems like he's a good regular season coach, and I mean he could take any team to a Super Bowl. But I remember watching that second half, and the first six drives were all passes, and even the announcer was like, "You had six plays. Why didn't you run it? You have McCaffrey behind you. He could have easily ran the ball. He had an amazing game." And so why they started like didn't or why they messed that up at the halftime, because at half they were doing really well. And then after that, once they started passing it more often, I'm like, you guys are just doing the same thing that like this is history repeating itself. So I don't know. I knew not running the ball that efficiently would end up costing the team in the end, and unfortunately it did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think McCaffrey had what 150 total yards on the carries that he did have. I just don't see why you don't ride him. And then I seen a couple days back, I seen a post, and I think it was L'Jarius Sneed, one of the Chiefs corners. He was like answering some media questions. They asked him what their game plan was, and they were like, "We wanted him to throw the ball." And I thought that was the most disrespectful thing ever, but it worked. The more you throw and
Yeah.
not use that one in your backfield who is the best in the league, you not a recipe for success.
Now, I want to ask this, and obviously there could be a lot of what ifs, but if the Lions had a won, do you think they would have had a chance against the Chiefs?
Ooh, I didn't. I've never even thought about that. I think the way they run the ball, they definitely could have a chance. Campbell is not afraid to stick to the run. That guy will
No.
just ground and pound you to the death. So
Yeah,
I could definitely see them having a chance at it with both of their backs. Why not?
exactly. Now, the one thing that, like, I don't know, obviously, personally, the coaches, but I think that of all the coaches in the league, he would be the most fun to play with because he seems like he's got heart because he was a former player himself. And like a lot of players, from what I've read or seen, they have nothing but praise for their coach. Obviously, every team's going to be supportive of their head coach, but I just think playing for that guy would be just so much fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even in the sports that I've played, like as a kid, it's like if
Yeah,
your coach is a nice guy and he motivates the team does well and they respond to that by showing them effort, right?
yeah,
They're like, hey, this
yeah,
guy actually cares about what we're doing here,
yeah,
so let's give him something in return.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
think with the Lions, it's that same kind of thing where it's like, hey, this guy respects us, wants us to do well, and is not just in it for him.
Yeah,
So
there we go.
I think it's probably very easy to play with the Lions with how it seems that Dan Campbell is.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I just think that whenever former players we get behind the bench or get to have coaching jobs, they obviously know the game. So I feel like that would be a huge advantage, especially if you're a GM looking to hire at a certain position, whether it's a coordinator, quarterbacks coach, whatever it is. Because I want to make one bold prediction, and I don't know when it's going to happen. It might not even happen, but I feel that at some point Peyton Manning will take up some type of a coaching job in the NFL, and I guarantee any team would hire him in 2 seconds. Now, maybe he doesn't want to have that, or maybe he wants to be a GM. I mean, the guy was a genius, and I know because I'm a little biased because obviously he played for the Broncos and helped them get a Super Bowl. But I used to love him when he was in Indianapolis as well. But I have a funny feeling he's going to get involved with some type of team, some type of way. Now, if it isn't coaching, I think management, he could easily do that because he seems like the kind of guy who studies players, and he could be like, oh, yeah, this guy can help our team. Let's move up in the draft, or let's move down in the draft. I really want this kid because I think, again, just former players have a major advantage, I think, when it comes to like management positions, coaching positions, etc.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The one guy just off the top of my head when you were saying all those things about Manning was a man by the name of Luke Kuechly. If you ever go back and watch his highlights or his like mic'd up moments, smartest guy on the field. He knew what was happening before it happened. He would call out like it's a run to the left, and it's a run to the left. He just knew everything. So on that same thing with players going to coaches, I could see him being even a head coach or a coordinator one day.
I think he'd be a fantastic defensive coordinator. I think he would really excel at that. Obviously, I'm pretty sure he won Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sure at some point in his brief career. And I know players nowadays tend to have a tendency to leave the game before they should, but a lot of these people are thinking about their future. So I'm sure Kuechly dealt with some type of injury, whether it was concussions or whatever it is, in his brief NFL career. So maybe he made that wise decision that, hey, look, I could still play for 5 more years or 6 more years, but is it going to make my health worse over time? Because as a defensive player, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit your head against something, whether it's somebody's another helmet, because you're always typically leaning forward
Mhm.
to make a tackle or a sack. So, I mean, it's a shame from a fan's point of view that he didn't have a further career because his career could have flourished, but I understand the whole mental aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I think you were right with the concussion. I think it was his back, and I think it was his head that he was worried about. I think he had a surgery on his back. I might be wrong, but I think I remember that. So, and same thing with like Andrew Luck. I'm thinking, more like had really short careers because of injuries. I feel like they could bring something also valuable to a team if they were to become a part of like any coaching staff or anything is they will want to probably educate like the people there like hey like this is how you should properly do this to
Yeah.
minimize the risk on yourself. So I feel like those guys who have been injured out of the league
Yep.
are also good candidates for coaching.
No, it's funny that you brought up Andrew Luck because I was going to easily bring him up as well. That another guy who obviously left very soon. I know there were fans that were bitter about that because the season was just about to start, and then they obviously had to go with like Jacoby Brissett for a year. So
Yeah.
I can understand from the fans' point of view. I'd probably be upset as well. But the further you dig into it, you understand why. Because I remember when he had his press conference, it was you play, you get hurt. Sorry, you get hurt. So you play, you get hurt, and then you do surgery, you recover. It was like the same pattern, I guess, for like X amount of years. So I was like, and the guy got hit a lot. I remember one
Mhm.
thing that Colts team in his tenure there, they're like they should have drafted like guards, tackles, better centers because if he had a better offense around him, I guarantee I'd be willing to bet that he easily he could still be playing today if he had better protection.
Yeah, I think I remember like just looking back that he was like one of the most sacked quarterbacks over a span of years, which
Mhm.
is why you kind of feel for these guys who go into a new system like coming out of the draft and the team around them is just not built for them. Like if you look at I mean, Carolina's got an okay line, but not great. Like Bryce Young is probably going to get hit a lot in his early
Yeah.
career. So it's really hard for those young guys, especially quarterbacks coming in with not a whole lot behind them.
Staying on the quarterback topic or whatever it is, I want to ask you a question. Now, I know when it comes to the Hall of Fame, there's a there's a gray area when it comes to certain careers because there's a lot of guys I'm sure there's guys that are in there that you might question, and then there's certain guys that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. So this might be a tough one, and for me, I think the answer is yes, but it's just because of how great of a career he had. Just unfortunately, he wasn't able to get to the big dance. It's Philip Rivers. So do you think that Rivers is a Hall of Fame candidate, and is he a first ballot Hall of Famer?
First ballot, maybe, maybe not. He has the numbers, but he doesn't have the accolades. So I think he is a Hall of Famer, but not first ballot, just based off of doesn't have an MVP, doesn't have a Super Bowl, like any of those, it factor accolades. He doesn't have.
Yeah.
The numbers are there, but I think that'll just hold him back a bit. But I think he does get there.
Yeah, and then I think we had this discussion before, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but because Luck's career was so short, do you think he would be a potential candidate for the Hall of Fame?
If he was still playing, yes. With his career that actually happened, he won't make it. It's just
Now, staying on, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
too short of a sample size to kind of judge. Like, yeah, he was great for those 4 seasons that he played in total with the injuries.
Yeah. So sorry. So staying on short careers, do you think Kuechly is a Hall of Famer?
Ooh, you really hit me with that one. I'd have to look. I think he was drafted in 14. No, that seems a little further down. No, 12. He was drafted in 2012, I think.
Okay.
And he was out in 19 or Ooh, that's tough. Just because of how much I like him, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
I just think that if he kept playing, he'd be that, like, could have been the greatest linebacker ever. So I
Yeah.
think a guy with that potential would be a yes, where I guess Luck is kinda that way too. Man, now you got me stumped. I'm saying no to Luck and yes,
Yes to Kuechly.
yes to Kuechly.
Well, I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to say yes to both. I just think just because he's Luck, and obviously everyone loved him. I think that's what I mean when there's a gray area when it comes to the Hall of Fame. Because I'm sure there's guys that never made the Super Bowl that are in the Hall of Fame. And then, like I said, just at the start of the conversation, I'm sure there's guys that have Super Bowl rings that aren't in the Hall of Fame. So I feel that I don't want to say the word favoritism is real, but it's not real. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's going to sound again a little biased because I'm a Broncos fan, but I think like Steve Atwater just got in the Hall of Fame last year, and obviously I was way too young to watch his early seasons because I think like when he played for the Broncos in the late '90s when I started watching football, but I know he played before that, so I guess he was just made in the Hall of Fame last year, and he was on the candidate list for like years, and people would be looking at his resume like he had like one of the best seasons when he was with the Broncos, and they just questioned it. And then it was so funny because I think there was like a meme that said like the Broncos had like the fewest Hall of Famers in the Hall of Fame, and now my screen's frozen. Great, damn it, my screen's frozen.
Oh, no, there goes the screen.
Oh. I mean, we can continue the conversation. It's just going to be my face, but
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, sounds good.
We're in a good conversation here.
Yeah, I just don't want to ruin this. I don't want to start over again. I'll lose the momentum. But yeah, I just think Luck. I think Kuechly did have, even though it was a brief career, it was very good. Like I don't think anyone. It's hard. Like if you get on the level of you're one of the greatest at your position, and we're over 100 years in the NFL, and you're telling me that he's like in the top 5 or whatever it is when it comes to potential linebackers, that'd be unreal, especially for the 5 or 6 year career or 7 year career we had. So I 100% agree with you that Kuechly should get in the Hall of Fame. And I'm just going to say, just because he's luck, I think he'll get in. But I will say, make this bold prediction. I don't think RG3 is a Hall of
No, no,
Famer.
no, no. I'm just gonna touch on your Steve Atwater point. I didn't even know that, and that is wild to me. That guy, it was a staple when I was growing up watching everything. Best safeties of all time, hardest hits of all time. Atwater was there every time. That's wild.
There's a highlight. I'm sure you can look it up where it shows there was I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I guess his nickname was like the Nigerian Nightmare. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs at the time, and they were
Yeah.
obviously still division rivals back then. And like the guy was known for like running people over, but Atwater put him in his place, and you can just see his body just crumble. And that was probably his most infamous hit from a defensive side, was knocking that guy on his ass.
Yeah, there's one specific clip of that, and that's probably my favorite football video I've ever seen. Because, like, growing up in a football family, my dad was like, "Oh, you should have seen this guy, Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare. That guy was just a monster." So I'd go upstairs, type it in, and I'd be like, and then I watched that Atwater hit, and I was like, "Oh, he's not that cool anymore."
So, what I want to do real quick, because I know you said that you got stuff to do and whatever it is. So, what I'll do is I just want to quickly go over the standings from this past year. And I know it's early and we still have a long time before the regular season starts back up again. But I just want to see who you think is actually a contender and a pretender from their records. I'm going to go from worst to first. And if you want to make a bold prediction and say like this team finished like 6-13 or 6-14, but you think they have a chance at making the playoffs, feel free to be bold about some of these predictions.
Okay, and this is going into next year?
Yeah, so I'm just going from
Okay.
worst to first when it comes to the standings. I'm not sure if you're if you have a game system or whatever it is, but I love playing football, so I'm like a huge Madden fan. The one
Yeah.
thing I do like is the franchise mode because it has all the stats from the season, which is fantastic. The only crummy thing is when it does a simulation on here. Obviously, Lamar won the MVP, but they put Dak as the MVP on here, so it kind of
Yeah.
made me chuckle about that. But yeah, I'm just going to go through the records, and if you think they have a shot, cool. If you think they're still in a rebuild, just kind of stuff like that, just to kind of pass a little bit of time. So the Carolina Panthers finished with a 2-15 record. What's your bold prediction for next season?
It ain't bold, I can tell you that much. I'd say you're probably looking, depending on their off season, I'm looking at 5, 6 wins probably.
Yeah, that was a very disappointing year, and I mean, I thought they would have been better because I thought that once Brady left, that division was up for grabs. And the year before, I think that was the year that was the last year that Brady played. They had like an 8-9 record to get in the playoffs, and like the
Yeah.
Panthers had a 7-10 records. They were right behind them. So to go from almost winning your division a season ago to getting 2 wins is absolutely absurd and mind blowing for me.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to bolster the lineup.
No kidding, right? But this next team really took me by surprise of how much they've struggled. That's the Arizona Cardinals, 4-13. Obviously, they didn't have Kyler Murray at the start of the season. But for a team that like just 2 years ago, they were in the playoffs. Yeah, they lost to the Rams, but they looked very good that season. And then just to have drop off after drop off seasons back to back, like, are you still thinking of these guys as still rebuilding, even though you have Kyler Murray at the prime of his career? Or are you thinking of maybe you guys got a shot next year?
Well, I think it's almost like the Rams situation a couple years ago. I think you're looking as a team, even though like not nearly as old of a team, like they brought in the Rams brought in everyone for that Super Bowl run. They brought in Eric Weddle, who was like 50. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy was like 100 when he came to play. But I think it's that same kind of thing with younger guys. I think it's you either go hard now while Kyler is as good as he's going to be, or you trade him away. and start a completely new rebuild. I think those are kind of the only 2 options is you go hard or you cut it down and give Kyler to someone else for picks and start the rebuild.
Now, I think I've asked this before, but now obviously I can look this up. But from your memory, which is probably better than mine, did he already sign his extension, or does he still have to sign his contract?
I believe he has, no, 19 they probably picked up his 5th year this year.
So maybe they gave him like a franchise tag or something, or
Yeah, so when you're a rookie, you get placed on a 4-year deal, and then you can pick up a 5th year, and this would be his 5th season.
so he's
So they
looking at possibly getting paid this offseason too.
Yeah, so he might have done that, but he also could have signed. I can't remember if he signed.
Because I'm just thinking it from like what you're talking about is if he thinks this team's going nowhere, and hypothetically, if he did not sign that long-term contract, he could basically be a free agent. He could have teams going after him. I
Mhm.
just think that he just hasn't had the support that he's needed, whether it's weapons or maybe it's the offensive line. But it's just a shame. Like I said, they looked so good 2 years ago, and I would have picked them to be Super Bowl contenders at that time. But to go to have back-to-back losing seasons, and I know Kyler Murray's still going to be good for many years to come, but you'd hate to waste his talent if you don't think you're going to make a move within the next season or two.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. You don't want to waste away that player's career, right?
Yeah,
So, I think whether look, and I think the Cardinals want to get something out of him is another part of it. I don't think they let him walk in free agency. I think they sign or trade him while they have him,
yeah,
or sign him and make him stay, I guess. I just don't see the
yeah.
Cardinals getting nothing out of him.
No, no. They if they have to trade him, they'll definitely get at least a first round pick. At least. I mean, you're not going to get a second round pick for that guy. I mean, he's a good quarterback, so he should get the high value back.
Yeah, you're probably looking at a first and either a good player or a first and a second and a half decent player.
I 100% agree. Okay, so the next team, and this is going to be very interesting how this next season for them approaches is the New England Patriots, finishing 4-13 as well. What turned out to be Bill Belichick's last season as the head coach, and honestly, I think he's going to retire. But I wouldn't be surprised if a team sucks and then they thought Belichick would stir things up. But I mean, the guy's in his 70s. I feel like he should just retire anyway. And I think they named Gerard Mayo the head coach. And I guess he was drafted by the Patriots. So the fact that he was now going to be a former player and now he's a head coach, we just talked about this earlier. How do you feel about this team and him specifically leading this team moving into next season?
Now, I don't know anything from the coaching side about Gerard Mayo, but let me tell you, being a Patriots fan when I was younger, that guy
Yeah.
was it. Seeing him in the middle, oh man, can't say enough about the guy. Will he be a good coach? I don't know. I didn't even know that he was up for coaching. Apparently, he was the linebackers coach for
Yeah.
somewhere, but uh, I like him. I think he could bring a fresh new look to the Patriots where, Bill had this obviously he's older, he has this idea that how he wants it to be, and he's not gonna change it. I
Right.
think Mayo's gonna, freshen it up a bit with that younger kind of generation, and I s I'm assuming they're gonna bring in a new quarterback in this draft, so I think it's gonna be a very different look than what everyone is used to from the Patriots.
Yeah, I think they'll do better than 4-13, but I think it's still going to be very competitive in that AFC East. I'll get into the other teams in here just a second, but I mean, as long as the Jets do better than the Patriots, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots still finish fourth in that division.
Yeah, I think they definitely are probably gonna finish 4th. I mean, who's gonna be lower than them, right? You have the Bills,
Exactly.
they're gonna be good. The Dolphins, they're gonna be good. If Rodgers is healthy, the Jets will be good.
Yeah.
there's an outlier.
Someone's got to finish last.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at. I'd say they were 4-13 this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm probably saying there's no shot at more than 7.
right. Yeah, I could see them splitting some of their series with the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's 3 wins just right there. And then I don't know what they have for the division, but I mean, they even upset, who was it, the Steelers this past year?
Yeah, they did beat the Steelers.
Yeah, so anything can happen on any given Sunday. So just because your team is in the bottom half of the standings, you could easily upset one of the best teams in the league. So there's no guarantees.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the next team, it's the Washington Commanders. And I'll just say this right now. I don't know what they're doing in the offseason. I don't know what they're doing for draft picks, but I'm saying they're still finishing 4th in the NFC East. Where do you got them?
Yeah, definitely still at the bottom there. I love Sam Howell. I do.
Yeah,
He's like Baker to me.
yeah.
Gunslinger, questionable decision making at time. Looks funny when they run. I like Sam Howell, but they ain't doing nothing. Just how it works.
Yep, unfortunately. Okay, so now we're heading to, and this team really surprised me considering they made the playoffs last year, and then they absolutely ished the bed. Are the Los Angeles Chargers finishing 5-12? One,
Oh,
how surprised were you about their dreadful season, and what? How do you think they'll do next year?
we gotta find Mike Williams a new body, first of all. That brother cannot stay healthy. It's been what, 3 years? I think 3 years in a row where it's either been ACL or some sort of, like, leg injury, and this guy's just like, "Nah, I ain't playing this year. Somebody get this guy some help. Get Justin Herbert some help." I mean, you've got 30-year-old Keenan Allen, who happens to be my favorite player, uh, other than Gronk. He's my favorite player. Love him. But you can't have a 30-year-old route runner doing what I think he was like 60% of the offense this year was Keenan Allen.
That's crazy.
That ain't good. I can tell you
No.
that.
If he was
So
23, 24, I'd say, yeah, target him as much as you can. Like, he was a great receiver when he had Phillip Rivers at the helm, and he's still a good receiver now. But, I mean, it's hard to think when you say someone's 30 years old that, like, their career could be winding down because you think 30, that's still young. But, I mean, players are lucky to play 10, 15 years in this league. So when you get to the 30, 31-year-old mark, you're not the same like you were 6, 7 years ago.
yeah, no, those bones are a little weaker. But I mean, the Chargers, man, they just gotta help out and stay healthy. That's I
Yeah.
think their biggest issue is their health, right? Like Joey Bosa, always injured. Derwin James, always injured. Mike Williams, always injured. I think you have your best players not on the field is I
Right.
think their biggest issue, which I mean is easy to see. But I think in the draft they have to go probably defense. They messed up on offense this past year with Johnson, first receiver off the board, and he did nothing. So I think you go defense, maybe grab another corner, see if you can build in free agency. But I'd say Chargers, you're looking at probably 8 wins this year.
I could see that. They should definitely improve their record. There's no question about it. I'd be very shocked if they had another 5-12 season, especially now that they got who is it, Jim Harbaugh as their coach,
Uh,
or is it
yes,
John?
Jim.
Jim?
John is the
So
Ravens.
Ravens coach, right? So I think that's going to be a huge boost to this team, and I think, like, I know he's done well at the college level, and college isn't the same as NFL, but I just think that Jim's going to be a fantastic coach for that team, and I'm saying that as a Broncos fan, I'd love to have him, but I mean, Sean Payton's okay. We'll touch on him in just a second, but I think they should finish again, it's kind of the same record as you. They could even surprise a lot of teams and get back in the postseason. But yeah, I was very disappointed by them this year, and we'll see how next year does. Now, speaking of disappointment, this next team I thought would have won the division, but they finished last. And theirs, I believe, is the Tennessee Titans. Who the hell saw this coming? That cost Mike Vrabel his job.
Oh, I'm going to quickly touch on the Chargers.
Yeah, yeah,
Jim has been to a Super Bowl
yeah,
with the Niners, right? So he
yeah,
has that championship pedigree. Yeah, he lost, but he was there.
yep,
So I think that he could definitely help that team. And like you said, they could surprise people. They could easily go from that 8 wins to 12 like that. They
yeah.
could get to 12 wins super quick.
Oh
So it'll be interesting to see. Now to the Titans. Man, cut it down. Restart.
Yep.
Restart the business.
Yeah. That.
Oh,
So,
Henry gotta go. Basically, the whole team has to go. Your whole payroll is on 30-year-olds and up.
yeah.
Like it's just time to cut her down. You have your quarterback with Levis. I think that he is the answer.
Yeah.
I think you just got to get rid of your old pieces while they still have a little bit of value. Get in some new guys and try to build around Levis.
Yeah. There's no question. Someone, I guess, is in the chat says their name's Biggie, Chiefs fan here. Well, there you go. There's this another Chiefs supporter.
Well, I never said I was a Chiefs supporter. I said I thought they were going to win.
So the next one is Lions, and I can't remember who the quarterback. Like, I was the quarterback that started at the end of the season, and he had like Italian agent.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito.
Do you see him possibly stealing the job from Daniel Jones, or what do you think his deal
I
is?
don't know if either of them are the answer. Did Jones sign a contract?
Yeah, he signed it last
A
offseason.
big one, right? Like a
Yeah,
5-year, 200 or something.
it was something stupid, and like if he didn't make the playoffs last year, there's no way he would have got that money. And then he got off to a bad start, and then got hurt this year too. So who knows?
Yeah, I guess Daniel Jones is the answer if you're paying him that much money. I mean,
Yeah.
oof. Giants are in a bad place.
Thanks, I appreciate the just subbed. So the next one are the Chicago Bears. I remember they got off to a horrendous start, and then they started getting better at the end. Unfortunately, they lost. So they finished 7-10. Obviously, Justin Fields is the quarterback of that team. I don't know if he signed his contract extension yet, but if he does, I'm sure he'll get paid, because I'll just say this before I give you the floor is he's a really good mobile quarterback. Like, he could run for 50, 60 yards a game if he wanted to. Plus, he could probably throw it for 200. So I feel like he's a very good quarterback. It's just, do you think they have the pieces around them to get them back into the postseason?
I think that with their current team and the way that things are over in Chicago,
Yeah.
it's not looking too bright. But I think Fields is the answer at quarterback. They have the 101 this year, but they could take Caleb. I probably wouldn't if I was them. I'd try to trade it away and get a lot more pieces to build it on Fields. I think they haven't given him a fair enough chance. That might just be my opinion, but I think that he could take that organization to the playoffs if surrounded by the right people.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the season, they started getting hot, and then they were actually, I think, at one point they were in a playoff picture, because I think that division or that conference was so weak. Because I think the Packers got in with like a 9-8 record. So they only finished two less wins than they did. So if they had had the same record, who knows who would have got that last playoff spot? But I think they will be good, but that NFC North's still going to be tough. I still think there's at least two really good teams in there, one mediocre team, which we'll touch base on in just a second. So it's hard to say who's going to finish first and last, especially in that division. Now, speaking of not sure where they're going to go, I don't even know if how they're going to do next year out of the Atlanta Falcons. How do you feel about them?
Ooh, they're probably my least favorite team in the league right now. Like that I think can do well. They have the pieces, but they just can't seem to put it together. And I assume that that's just from the quarterback play. They have none of it. It doesn't exist. They don't have a quarterback capable of getting them anywhere. And their previous head coach, was just ooh, just nothing up here. I mean, get him gone. They brought who did the Falcons bring in?
It was a coordinator, wasn't it?
I'm not too sure who they brought in.
Okay.
Hoping he's a lot better at utilizing those weapons. Because let me tell
No
you,
kidding.
Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London on the outside. I mean, you got three young possible superstars. Give those guys the rock. It's not a hard thing to figure out. So, you know, get a quarterback, and I can see them this year if they have a quarterback. I give them 6, 7 wins just based on that they can't seem to put it together, and I won't trust that they can until they do.
100%. So this guy that's watching us, he said that he saw Justin Fields' game as a Chicago Bear game against the Rams. So if you're still watching, let me know who it was and how that experience was. And then he also said he's like, I don't know who the guy on the left is, but this is probably his channel, but his camera's pretty screwed up. Yeah, my screen froze probably like 20 minutes ago. And we were just in such a great conversation and deep conversation. I didn't want to stop the live and do it over again. So unfortunately, you're just seeing my face. I am still here, but yeah, no, there was some technical issues.
Yeah. That's all good though. This is a low budget show.
Exactly. This is the Wish version of YouTube.
Yeah.
So the next team, and I'll just say their name, and I'll get your opinion. The New York Jets finished 7-10 last year. Floor is yours.
Jets are such a hard team to judge just because we haven't seen it. You go from not having a good year at all, you go to bringing in Rodgers in one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You get 2, 3 snaps out of him, and then it's like, well, guess there's next year. So they're just really hard to judge without seeing how they play together, right?
Yeah.
So based off of just instinct, I think the Jets are better than the Patriots, but not better than the Bills. And the Dolphins in them I'd probably put them around the same place. So probably 9, 10 wins is probably where I see them.
Yeah, especially if they have a healthy Rodgers. I just hope that he's like fully recovered because I don't know how long it normally takes to cure your. Hold on a second. He had like an Achilles injury, or he tore his Achilles, or he did something to his leg. I can't remember what it was, but I'm not sure what like the full recovery rate or the period is. So I'd hate for them like him to still have like lingering pains going into camp because if he takes another shot like that, that could be a career uh, ending right there.
Yeah, but it's Rodgers, and that guy's into voodoo and all that kind of fun stuff. So, he was well ahead of schedule, but he said that he wouldn't come back unless they were in a place of playoff contention.
Yeah,
So I'm assuming that he'll be fully healed for the year just based off of how far ahead he was. I just can't see him
yeah.
going back and then trying to come back forward.
Yeah, no kidding. They should finish better than 7-10. And but like before I get on to the next team, like I know I keep screwing this name up because I've brought this name up so many times and you've always corrected me. So If it's not Rodgers, the other guy is uh, Zach Wilson, right?
Yeah, it's Zach Wilson and then Simeon's behind him.
So, do you honestly think that Zach Wilson is still going to be a member of the Jets because he hasn't proven that he's the. I don't remember if he was the first overall pick, but he was up there when he was drafted. So the Jets had high hopes. Obviously, they haven't had a quarterback since Mark Sanchez, and that was well over a decade ago. But do you see him being the long time future? Because obviously, Rodgers is only going to be there maybe another year or two. Like, I can't see him playing past 41, 42. So do you really think that he'll sit behind Rodgers for 3 years, or do you think that he'll want to go elsewhere, knowing he probably has a better chance as a starting quarterback position, as long as Rodgers is there and he's healthy? He's obviously the QB1 of that team.
Yeah, I think Wilson's definitely out of there probably as quickly as he can. I mean, the
Yeah,
fans hate him, right? New York just doesn't like the guy. They want him gone. They think that he's just the worst quarterback ever. You can see it in the games. He throws one incomplete pass and there's boos raining down on him. So
yeah,
I think that he needs a new team and a change of scenery. So I don't see him sitting behind Rodgers. Maybe one more year, but I can see him just trying to get onto a new team to show what he can do.
yeah. 100%. I think he, for himself, has to get out of that position because, like you said, the fans are heckling him. No one wants him there. He can clearly read the signs on the wall. So I think his time should be coming to an end. And who knows, maybe they even do something by the draft because you might get a second round pick for him. You're not getting a first round. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. But this guy's like, the Bears haven't had a good quarterback since 1943 when Hitler was alive. Well, all right.
What about Jay Cutler?
Jay Cutler was okay.
Yeah.
So the Minnesota Vikings, I predicted that they would have gotten the division, but obviously they fell short. Do you think that they could be chasing another quarterback? Do they still have faith in Cousins? And more importantly, where do you think they'll finish in next season?
I think you have to give Kirk at least one more year. I think that he's shown that he can lead that team to success if, you know, he's healthy. So I think you give him one more year, see where you guys land, and then based off of that, either sign him to a 3-year deal or start young. I think
Yeah,
Kirk's still young enough where you can give him that trial year and then be like, hey, we can maybe ride this for 2-3 years. So I I see them keeping Cousins for now, and probably next year you're probably looking at 10, 10 or so, 10 wins.
yeah, I could see them possibly getting 10 wins. They could. I think they should at least get a wild card spot. Like 900, I have a lot of faith in the Lions to repeat as champions because they're a very dominant, very good team. But I mean, they could overpass the Packers. They could maybe both those teams get in. Who knows how where they're going to be at. And this guy just said Sid Luckman. So I got to look this up and see if he actually was the Bears quarterback back in that days. But while I'm doing that, I'll just get your thoughts on the Raiders. They finished 8-9. There was meaningful football in February in their stadium, but it was their AFC West rivals, the Chiefs, celebrating in their home stadium. So I'm sure they were bitter about that. Anyways, your thoughts on the Raiders season and next year?
Oof. The Raiders just do not have a whole lot going for them. I'm not going to lie to you. You've got Devontae and Josh Jacobs. On defense, you got Crosby. Not a whole lot more. Quarterback is a huge question mark, right? I heard that they're releasing Garoppolo, so there goes that money. And their quarterback right now is Aiden O'Connell, who's a rookie this year. So super hard to judge. I didn't watch a lot of Raiders football this year, so that should tell you a whole lot about how good I think they are. Just
So
based off of New head coach. Eh, I'd give him 7 or 8 wins.
Yeah, I could see them getting that. I just don't think that. Um, okay, before I get onto this, I had to look this up. So that was a quarterback for the Bears between 1940 and 1946. So the guy knows his stuff. I'll give you props, buddy. So I had to look that up, but I appreciate the thing. But for the Raiders, between them and the Broncos, I think those two are like your bottom feeders of the AFC West. And I hate to say that because that's the next team that I'm looking up or that we're going to talk about. But yeah, I just don't know. Like, I think Anthony Pierce, who took over the head coaching job, and I believe they made him full time head coach, I think he's a great coach. But again, that's a very tough division. Mahomes and the Chiefs, they got a dynasty going. So there's no way you're dethroning them from the AFC West top of that division. And like we just discussed, the Chargers could surprise a lot of people. They could sneak up to second in that division. I would not be surprised about that at all. So I'm with you. I think it could be a 7-8 win season again for the Raiders next year.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I just talked about it. So I'll get on with the Broncos. Boy, oh boy. Man, did I ever have such hopes when they made that trade with Russell Wilson. And then the last 2 years, they've been just as bad, if not worse. And now we owe this guy millions of dollars and we don't even want him on our team. What the hell do we do, man?
I'm gonna give you my record, and I'm just gonna let you talk about how disappointed you are. 8 wins. Go ahead. How disappointing are the Broncos?
Oh my God, man. Like, it's like you're taking a knife, stabbing it in the back, and then there's just another one and another one and another one. And it's just like the pain doesn't stop. But then after a while, you just become numb and you're like, okay, we're kind of like, meh. We're not the worst team in the league, but we're like halfway there. We're slowly getting out of this rabbit hole. But oh man, no, this has been painful. I don't know who we go for as first quarterback. I'm going to sound stubborn, but I really don't follow college football. I might pay attention a little bit of attention to the draft, but I'm not like going through every single player from every single league. But yeah, that was looking back now. That was a terrible trade. Yeah, we had Drew Lock. He wasn't that great, but he's young, and maybe if we still had him and Peyton was coaching him, maybe he could transform him into a great quarterback. But we gave up on him after 2 or 3 years. We thought if we brought Russell Wilson in, we'd be getting a fantastic quarterback. I mean, he went to 2 Super Bowls, so he has the pedigree. And we just talked about how like certain guys and certain coaches have championship experience. And I obviously thought, man, we finally got the home run. We got a shot at this title. Yeah, still no playoffs, man. We haven't made the playoffs since 2015, 16 when we won the Super Bowl. We haven't made the playoffs in 8, 9 seasons. We're in like the decade of darkness for Broncos fans. So I don't know. They could finish worse than the Raiders. Maybe it just depends who the hell we ever has a quarterback. But man, like there's a reason. Like I always have cut short hair as it is, but if I had long hair, I'd be having patches all over my head with the amount of losses that like we've lost by a point or two, or special teams cost us, or oh my God, there's just so many problems. And I've heard of speculations that maybe we could trade away Sutton or we could trade away Judy. It's like, why? We need wide receivers. If we don't have wide receivers, then why don't we just run the ball 200 times a game? Like, oh man, brutal. That's my rant.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I was there once. I was there.
Okay, so the next team we'll take a look at, and we just talked about this team not too long ago, are the Green Bay Packers. They obviously finished 9-8. They upset the Cowboys in the first round. They made it close with the 49ers in the divisional round. What are your thoughts on their season? Have Jordan Love as their quarterback, and how do you think they'll fare out next year?
I think it's only up from here.
Yeah.
I think Love really showed out. He's started all right, had a little slump, and then just hit the gas, and he didn't look back. I think that he definitely is the answer for the next couple years, if not the new face of the franchise. So you said they were 9-8.
Yep.
Ooh, I could see him at least hitting that double digit mark. I can see him getting to 10, maybe 11 wins this year. I think you're not going to see regression, but I don't think you're going to see a huge explosion of success.
Right. It's very possible they could, again, like you said, um, they could finish maybe 10 wins. I think 10 might be the magic number. And you want to talk about, like, I'm sure they've had different GMs over the tenure, but just think of how this team has drafted like Hall of Fame quarterback after Hall of Fame quarterback versus the future of your franchise. And he could very well have a Hall of Fame career as well with the Packers and Favre, Rodgers, and now Love. Like, I doubt it was the same person that drafted all three of them. Well, sorry, Favre got traded, but I doubt like he drafted Rodgers and Love, and if he did, then fantastic. But like, my God, the geniuses they have in that little room of theirs just goes to show how they know talent when they see it.
They know quarterbacks, that is for sure. Man, I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see Jordan Love go to another team 10 years from now and just just throw the ball 80 yards down the field.
Him and Devontae got to get reunited.
Yeah.
So this team, or the next team, sorry, they had high hopes, and I pegged them along with the Titans to possibly get that AFC South crown. And I guarantee you're going to know who I'm talking about. Are the Jacksonville Jaguars? They pretty much pulled like the Titans did by losing in the last game of the season and not getting into not getting your AFC South crown, but you didn't get in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is what we like to call the triple P. That is the phrase piss poor pathetic. That is how they finished the year. It was just a collapse like I've never seen before. They were what, 8-3 at one point?
Yeah,
And then what happened?
yeah,
Just straight down. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, they were so hot and then just nothing.
yeah. They looked at that point when they did have that very good record that they could have easily gotten the number two, or hell, they could spot in the AFC if they kept that momentum and kept that mojo going. Because they look like there's certain teams that you're like, man, they look okay, but my God, the like what a drop off they had. Now going into next year, do you think they'll be able to contend, say, with the Texans or the Colts for that top seed in that division?
Oh, I hope so because the Jags are a fun team to watch, right? Lawrence is fun to watch. I think ETN is fun to watch. I like to root for Calvin Ridley because I think it's funny that he got suspended for gambling.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I like to root for him because I think it's funny. Uh, so they're a fun team to watch. So I hope that they do, get back on their feet and do something with it because they're enjoyable to watch. And at the end of the day, football is entertainment.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if they're still here or not, but they said they were going to sell tickets and then they lost and they refunded all the tickets back. So I'm not sure if they were talking about the Jaguars that we're talking about or another team, but anyways. So next we are looking at where are we?
Do you mind if I take like a 30-second timeout? I gotta go to the
Go
bathroom.
ahead. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, no rush, no rush. Well, at least it was nice of them to get the refund back. That was nice. I'm not sure if I can have anybody else join the stream. I can only do one person at a time. If you're interested in doing one in the future, we can obviously message or whatever it is. Figure that out. Ugh. So, if you don't mind me asking, if you're a Chiefs fan, how do you feel about that whole incident at the parade? Who do I think the Browns are going to pick for a quarterback next year? I don't know. Isn't Deshaun Watson supposed to be the guy?
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. So since that buddy's a Chiefs fan, I was just talking about that whole incident at the parade. That was nuts.
That is just breaking is what that is.
It's just unreal. I mean, you're there to celebrate, and then something tragic has to happen. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll keep this rolling. And there was a lot of like 8, 9 teams, 9 and 8 teams. So I'm not even sure what order I'm going in anymore. The New Orleans Saints, is Derek Carr the answer? Do they try to get someone else? They finished 9 and 8, and they could have gotten that last playoff spot, but unfortunately the Packers got it, even though they also had a 9 and 8 record. So unless they played each other, I'm not sure how that went. But do you think that they're pretenders or contenders?
Pretender.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, give him the snips. The guy's got to go. He ain't the answer. I don't know who they're going to bring in. I don't care if it's free agency or the draft. Just get him gone. He's not the
Yeah.
answer there. I think he's a good quarterback, but not for the Saints. He just doesn't fit that brand of football, I guess. But he's just not the answer there. It's time to move on.
Exactly. Time to cut the ties. There's a reason Vegas got rid of him, and he was their franchise quarterback for like 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So the Seattle Seahawks, they also finished 9 and 8. Uh, they got like two different guys they could choose. They still have Geno Smith, and they got somebody else. I'm pretty sure. I think Drew Lock.
Yeah.
So if those are your starting quarterbacks, how do you feel about this team for next year?
I think with either of them, they can succeed. I like Drew Lock. I think Geno's probably a better option right now, but I
Yeah.
think depending on how Geno plays, I wouldn't be surprised if Lock gets a couple starts throughout the year. I think that they're a good team. I think they have the pieces to succeed. They are a little bit on the older side, but I think that they have the pieces to at least get maybe a wild card spot. I think that they could do that.
Yeah, I think they should be just as good. I mean, again, they finished with the same record as the Saints and Packers, and the 9 and 8 was the record to get into a playoff spot. So they were right there, but it just fell short. But I think they very well could be. I mean, and who's their new head coach? Because Pete Carroll stepped down, didn't he?
Yeah, he is not the coach anymore. I'm not too sure who their coach is. That would have been the most
Yeah.
recent coach. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, but I still think they have enough talent. I mean, they still got DJ Metcalf as their wide receiver, so I mean, he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, DK is a beast.
So another team that got snubbed out of the playoffs, and I thought they easily could have got there, were the Colts. They finished 9 and 8. What are your thoughts on this team and Anthony Richardson?
I love Richardson. I think that he is going to be a phenomenal quarterback in the league. I think that a lot of people doubted him coming in, that he didn't have the accuracy. He was just a big arm and fast. But
Yeah,
while he is an athlete, I think that he can make those passes. I like to think of him as a Josh Allen type, both strong arm quarterbacks, fast, physical, and has that spotty accuracy at times, and has that could have that 3 game stretch or whatever where it's like, is this guy actually a good quarterback? And then he comes back and has this dominant 400 passing yard performance. So I really like the Colts. I think they're a fun young team, and I could definitely see them making the playoffs.
yeah, they should be very good. And Richardson's their quarterback of the future. There's no question about it. Okay, so on to a team that with a quarterback you're very familiar with, and Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. They finished 9 and 8. Do you think they can possibly repeat as NFC South champions? And if so, why?
Sign my boy Baker, first of all. Give that man his money. I seen a report today that he was supposedly in the realm of 3 years, 75 mil. Yes, That's what we
Wow.
like to see. That's my boy Baker right there. I will never forget.
25 million a year. That's, I mean, a lot of guys are getting paid a lot of money for quarterbacks, so I shouldn't say anything.
I will never forgive the Browns for getting rid of him. So I think if they can keep enough pieces, I think they can be successful. I think you need to keep Baker and Mike Evans. You need both of them if you want to succeed. So I don't know if they're in win now mode, but if they want to be competitive, I think you need both of those guys on your team.
Yeah, no question. And I don't know if he signed an extension or if he is trying to, but Mike Evans, I think he was drafted by the Buccaneers, so that was his only team. And I mean, him and Baker seem to have a pretty good connection, so I could see them
Yeah,
being very good.
yeah. Evans was drafted in 14, and he's
Wow,
been with them ever since. So
that's crazy.
I mean, I like to think of him as one of those lifelong guys, right? Who's on the team the entire life, like Larry
Yeah,
Fitzgerald. I
yeah,
like to think that Evans could be one of those guys who sticks with one team his whole career. Um, and he doesn't. He's a free agent as of right now. Like, not yet, but when free agency starts, he would be a free agent.
that's crazy. Yeah, they got to get that guy signed.
Yeah.
So a team that I thought would have been at least championship game bound were the Cincinnati Bengals. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow got hurt. He's down for the rest of the season. Do you think this is still a very? Would you say this team is like championship worthy? Since obviously they went to a Super Bowl just 2 seasons ago. Still,
It's going to be interesting to see if they lose T. Higgins, I think.
right?
So Higgins is coming up on free agency, probably the best receiver in free agency, in my opinion. So it depends if he sticks with the team or not. I still think, regardless if he's there, they're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC, if not the league. If Higgins is there, I see them in that 12, maybe 13 win range. If he's not there, I think more realistically, you're 10, 11 is probably what you're looking at.
For sure, for sure. I mean, he's Joe Cool for a reason, so it should be uh, potentially even a wild card team. I would hope it. I know the Ravens are still going to be a good team, and I know we discussed about the Browns too. They should be good, but I think that those are your top three teams in that division. I don't think the Steelers are going to be. I think they're going to be bottom feeders. We'll touch on based on the Steelers in just a second. So I'll quickly try to get through this as quick as possible because I'm sure you're probably going to crash here soon. So the Rams 10-7, they got in with a wild card spot. Do you think they'll be able to repeat and get back in?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the Rams are on an upward trajectory with how the season ended. I think Stafford is still an elite quarterback. I think if you have a healthy Cooper Cup and a healthy Puka, you're on the outside, you're set. And then I love Kyron Williams. I think that he's a great back. So I think as long as you can stay healthy and everyone plays how they should, I think that they might even top their record. I think they could get to the 12 win mark if everything goes how I envision it to. I could see them being an 11, 12 win team.
Oh, there's no question about it. Now we just talked about this team, the Steelers. It's crazy that they've always had an above 500 record with Mike Tomlin at the helm, and he's still coming back next year for the coach. Do you think this is the year that the Steelers finally get below 500, or do you see them still squeaking in like 9, 10 wins for next year?
Bold prediction time. I'm saying no higher than 5.
Wow.
No higher than 5 wins. That might be the Cleveland Brown in me, but 5 wins tops. Those are a bunch of bums.
I don't want to make anything bold, but I could easily see them. I firmly believe they'll be below 500. I'm going to say 7-10, 8-9. I think they'll be interesting. I think it's going to come down to like the last game or two to really decide whether they're able to keep that streak alive. But I think this year it finally ends.
Nah, they're cooked by week 10. They'll be 2-8.
Very bold, very bold. So the Houston Texans, obviously, they got C.J. Stroud. He's going to be there for a long time, I'm sure. He finished his rookie season with the Offensive Rookie of the Year. and obviously got a home playoff game, won that, and then unfortunately they lost to the Ravens in the divisional round. Do you think they'll be just as competitive next year?
Oh, I love the Texans. They're so young. They're so fun to watch. They just they bring me joy. You have Stroud, who's this new flashy quarterback, throw into Nico Collins and Tank Dell on the outside. Man, you get me some good offensive football. I- Who's not going to have a good time?
Yeah,
So I think that they're just if they're all available to play, like that trio there, that Stroud, Dell, and Collins trio, if they're all there and healthy, ooh, I'd like to see what they could do. I'm thinking maybe 11, 12 wins. I see the Texans being really good next year.
for sure, for sure. And like I said, CJ Stroud, I know we've talked about him like all year round, that he's legit, and obviously he's the new face of the franchise. So they should be very competitive for years to come. I think the rebuild is officially over. So the Philadelphia Eagles, man, talk about a team that was soaring high, and then like they just got shot in the wing, and then they kind of just fell apart after. So now that Kelsey's gone, uh, do you see them being competitive? Do you think they're going to be taking a few steps back?
Not a few, but I think they might take a step back. I think
Okay,
it's very hard to replace a player like Jason Kelsey, right? Your
yeah,
center is the anchor of your O line. He's making all the calls, everything, right? He
yeah,
controls when the play starts.
yeah,
So it's hard to replace a guy like that, but it's not as important. I don't think it's as important of losing, you know, your quarterback. So
right,
you still have your pieces there. You're just missing one of them, right?
yeah,
So I think they might take a step back. I don't think they're necessarily Super Bowl bound or like championship competitive kind of thing, but I think they're
right.
playoff competitive.
Cool. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a very talented quarterback, and I know I was kind of preaching about Justin Fields being a fantastic mobile. Well, I mean, that's all Jalen Hurts does is like run the ball, whether it's a read option or a fake handoff or whatever it is. I feel like he could run the ball probably if he wanted to 20, 30 times a game. He's just that talented. He's got a fairly good arm too. So I know we've talked about this discussion about like teams now need mobile quarterbacks more than ever because you're not going to have the Tom Brady's or the Peyton Mannings just sitting in the pocket and waiting for the receiver to get open. Like these guys are, as soon as they're hiked the ball, they could be rushing to the right or the left. You can't be standing still because those linebackers or corners or safeties can come at you fast.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
The Miami Dolphins, 11-6. Obviously, they just missed out on getting the division. They lost to the Chiefs in the wild card round. So, do you think that this team can finally get over the hump and get out of the first round of the playoffs? Because I think they still should be. They're playoff bound. I just don't know like whether they're as good as the Bills. I mean, they proved that they were just as good. Maybe they do get the division, but do you think they're A, going to either get the division or B, make it to a divisional round?
I don't think they'll get the division over the Bills. I think that the Bills are one of the top class teams in the league.
Yeah,
So I put them maybe a game or two behind the Bills, maybe in that 11 win range.
yeah,
Um, I think they're a really good team if they're clicking at that right point. I like A Chain. I think that I mean, with that explosiveness, he can turn any run into a touchdown. Like
right.
nothing. They're the most explosive team in the league. So they can drop 35 points on your head like it's nothing. So
Yeah,
when you have a team like that who gives you that threat, I think that there's every chance in the world that they could make a run.
yeah, no question. They got a very good team, and like the combination of that team. If I'd have to look up the stats, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had like multi-100-yard receiving games because he's just that talented of a wide
Yeah,
receiver.
100%.
Speaking of Hill's former team, obviously the defending Super Bowl champs, will they be able to get a three-peat?
I think they're going to be on How's that song go? Knock knock knocking on heaven's door.
Yep.
That's going to be them. I think that they're headed back to the championship. That's for sure. If you
Yeah.
do they get to the Super Bowl? Maybe. Do they get the three-peat? That would be amazing. It would be
Yeah.
a spectacle. I don't think anyone's ever done that.
No, it's been a long time since anyone's three-peated it. So
Yeah,
maybe,
so it'd be something to see. That's for sure. I definitely see them getting back to the
yeah,
AFC Championship, but if they can get it done, man,
that'd be a sight to see. I'd probably cringe, but just as an NFL fan, that would be a sight to see. All right,
yeah.
so getting on to your favorite team, I'm sure you have a few things to say about them. 11-6, they obviously got upset against the Houston Texans. As long as you have a healthy Deshaun Watson, how successful should the Browns be, and can he get them a playoff victory?
Yeah, you ever heard about the 1972 Dolphins?
Undefeated? You're calling it?
Yeah, that's a dream. All right. Let's be realistic here. Undefeated. I'm hoping. I love my Browns. I think that they're going to.
Yep.
I'm really hoping that Deshaun comes out and shows me something. I mean, I think that he started kind of getting back into rhythm as he played, but I think if he's healthy and Chubb's healthy and Garrett's healthy, I think those three. I mean, this year we were, I think, the most injured team in the league. So if our guys are there and healthy, I think that definitely the Browns could make a playoff run, and hopefully they're Super Bowl contenders. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, exactly. I think they could easily, as long as, like you said, as long as those guys can stay healthy. I honestly firmly believe that they could um, even compete for a division crown.
Yeah, I'm hoping for it.
Next is okay, only a few more teams to go. So the Buffalo Bills obviously got the division barely, 11-6. How do you feel about their hopes? Can they finally slay the demons? Whether it's against the Chiefs, who seem to have their number, or if they have to play the Ravens or you guys, or maybe the Bengals. Are they finally going to be able to get over that hump and finally get to a championship game or even a Super Bowl in the Josh Allen era?
I wouldn't be surprised to see a Mahomes Allen championship to go to the Super Bowl. I
That would be cool.
I think that it's finally going to be that year where Allen goes, all right, it's time for me to show out. I think he's going to be probably an MVP finalist. I think that it's just going to be that kind of year where he's just clicking the whole year, doesn't have that 3-game dry spell where it's like, yee, I don't know about this guy. I think that he's going to be up there with MVP, and I could definitely see them making a run to it.
Yeah, I could easily see that happen too. I think they should get at least to a championship game because it's no longer okay just to make the playoffs. It's no longer okay just to get a wild card win. They can do that easily. It's just that division game just seems to kill them. And uh, they lost at home, didn't they? Yeah, they lost to the Chiefs, and then the year before they lost to the Bengals at home. So it's not like you're playing away from home where the environment's going to be hostile. You have hundreds of thousands of fans cheering you on. You think that would give you enough motivation to try to put on a better show? But obviously, if you play Mahomes, it's impossible. And obviously, Joe Burrow was amazing that one year. So it is what it is. So now, next will be the Lions finished 12-5. Can they repeat as NFC North champions? And do you think they'll have an easier road or a harder road to get back to the NFC Championship game?
I think they're definitely going to be near the top of the NFC again. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the exact same teams. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Niners and then the Lions. I just don't see a way where all of a sudden in one off season, both teams just go like that, and they're not what they were this year. So I think the Lions are going to be right back up there with that 11 or 12 win. I think they'll make a deep playoff push.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff has obviously the experience, led the Rams to the Super Bowl, and obviously got this team to a championship game. So he has he has the stats, he has the history, performing pretty well when it comes to the postseason. So they should be competitive next year. Now, speaking of being competitive, the Dallas Cowboys, woo, America's team. How about them Cowboys? Are they finally going to get a division round? Are they finally going to get to the conference championship? What's going on with the Cowboys now?
If they make it to the conference championship, they ain't winning. I can tell you that much. Least clutch team ever. We damn boys. You ain't nobody's boys. Just bad. I mean, like so much hype. This is our year. You hear it every single time, and they can't execute. I think that it gets just one step worse this year, and they make it to that championship game. Everybody's rejoicing. We finally got there, and then they lose.
Yeah.
That would be so poetic, and I can see it now.
And there's a lot of good teams in the NFC, and obviously we'll talk about this next one too. Now are the 49ers. One seed again next year. Like I personally think they'll get the NFC West crown. It's just a matter of where they finish in the top four. Where do you picture them when it comes to the next end of the regular season?
It's hard to say right now just because of the offseason, and I don't know who they're going to lose. Based
Right.
on if they have the same players, I think they're in the exact same place. I think you're still that one seed in the NFC, and again, making a deep playoff push. It's hard with these top teams. It's just hard not knowing who they're going to lose because if they're the same team, I see
Yeah.
them doing just as good or maybe a game or two worse.
Yeah, I think they should be very competitive this year, and they should have the mindset of it. Like I feel like if you get to the Super Bowl, and especially if you're not like an underdog, if you're like the top team, you should be just as competitive year in and year out. I mean, if the Chiefs can do it, why can't any other team do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
100%.
happened to the Eagles. So, I mean, can bad luck happen? Of course, but I think Mr. Irrelevant is pretty damn good, and he could easily have just as good of a season next year as he did this year.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So the last team are the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, finished with the best team or best record in the league, 13-4. Do you see them being just as competitive next year? Do you think it's going to be tougher for them to get the number one seed when it comes to the AFC?
5-12. Just
5-12. Wow.
no. All right. Just kick him out the league. I think they'll be a little bit lower. I don't think. I feel like I heard one of their guys say like this was our year. I don't know if this is going to happen again, and I kind of agree with that. I don't think that you can have back to back 13-4 seasons with just how their team is.
Yeah.
I can see them getting, right back to that double digit, maybe 10, 11, 12 if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Still a good team, but I just don't think that they'll have that. This is their year. Like this is actually going to happen. Kind of hype around them.
It's funny that you just brought up about how like someone mentioned that like they're not sure if they'll get back there, and it's not guaranteed unless you're Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. There's no guarantees in life that you'll be able to be just as good or stay or be that steady. And up until now, Lamar Jackson only made one championship game. He hasn't really proven himself in the playoffs. He's been a fantastic regular season quarterback. There's a reason he has two MVPs to his name, but
Yeah.
obviously, the big comparison is during their playthrough, Mahomes has gotten the better of him. I don't know how he's fared out against Josh Allen or how he's fared out against Joe Burrow. Obviously, they probably clashed being in the same division. But I mean, I thought that this legitimately was a chance for them to finally show the world that they can, show up. But again, they lost in the championship game, and it was at home of all places. So, I mean, you'd think you'd have a lot of fans that are cheering for you. I'm sure there are obviously a Chief fans there too. But
Mhm.
man, talk about a heartbreaking, breaking loss. Like, I think no matter where you are or where you are in the playoffs, it's going to sting. But if you get to the championship game and you're that close to a Super Bowl and lose, that's got to be like just gut wrenching.
Yeah. It's gotta be just awful, but it's so hard to have such a successful season to not win it,
Yeah.
go back and have just as successful of a season to win it. It's just really hard to do in my head.
Yeah, I find it. Uh, they should like. I don't know if I'm going to be bold and say they'll finish 5-12, but that was a bold. That was bold. I'll give you that. But I think that they'll finish at least with double-digit wins, whether it's 10,
Yeah.
11, whatever it is. I think it'll be around that mark. I don't think they'll have as good of a season with 13-4. I think 13 wins is hard to begin with,
Yeah.
but I still think 10, 11 wins. And again, I don't want to be super bold and say who's going to get the division crowns because we can save that for another time. But I mean, the Ravens could be good or could repeat, or like I said to you before, the Browns could surpass them. Or if Joe Burrow plays like he did 2 years ago, the Bengals could get the crown again. So there's no guarantees right now of who could be the best team in that division, considering all three teams could even make the playoffs. Like they're all three of them are individually talented or have their own talent in different areas.
Yeah. It's really anybody's race at this point.
But Cameron James, woo, right at the end too. Cool. Well, that's a good look. Sorry, finish what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, that was basically it. I think it's any team's r right or not any team's right, I don't know what I'm saying. It's anyone's crown is kind of what I'm trying to get at. I think any
Yeah,
one of them could walk out with 12 or 13 wins, and it's just gonna
yeah,
it's gonna be determined off of who wins those head-to-head matchups.
for sure, for sure. All right. Well, I know this took a lot longer than you expected. I know we were trying to keep this brief, so I apologize for keeping you. This has been almost
Oh,
an hour
all
and a half,
good.
so I feel terrible. I'm sure you're probably ready to crash at some point, but I really
Oh, no,
appreciate
we're
you
all
doing
good.
this. I can't thank you enough. This is a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. I get a lot of kicks out of doing stuff like this. So
Yeah, I always have a great time.
perfect. So I'm sure we'll be talking football again sometime in the future. I just want to get your little opinion on the teams and the offseason. This has been amazing. Just the fact that we were able to discuss this was it really kind of made my day. So I can't thank you enough. And I'm sure we'll be talking in the future and we'll be having more stuff to talk about when it comes to the NFL.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm always happy to be on.
Fantastic, buddy. You have a good night. We'll be talking. We'll talk at some point.
All right, sounds good.
See you, bud.
Yeah.
Bye.